when I announce it and you guys can go up. I'm going to give an intro, yeah. Good morning, ladies and gentlemen. It's great to see everyone back again, looking bright and refreshed. If everyone will take their seats, we'll get started right away. I'm Breejuin, your host. Welcome to the second day of your TechNet Conferences. It's a beautiful day outside. Weather is perfect as always in Vegas. Just a little warm, but still perfect, right? On our first day of Net Tech Conferences was a big success. I appreciate the efforts of all the visionaries in making yesterday's Global Technology Conference more engaging, solution-driven, and progressive for us all. Till now, we've talked about agendas that address the gaps within the industry, listened to some influential voices, learned about leading trends, and marked the strategies of what's possible to upgrade the tech space. In today's session, we will discuss some different topics on the most crucial agendas that could change your perspective on dealing with industry setbacks. Today's schedule includes more engaging fireside chats, interactive panel discussions, inspiring keynote sessions, and the opportunity to network with some of the renowned and like-minded industry elites. Furthermore, in light of appreciation for the notable contribution of honorees, there is a recognition session, and for refreshments, we have lunch and a networking session. We're united here to share knowledge, listen to insights, and mark unmatched strategies of change makers aiming to shape the future of technology. Today's session empowers you with some proven practical skills that you may apply to your organization. I would like to thank you for being here and contributing your interest to this incredible event. Now it's time to start today's session, followed by the first panel discussion. Let's quickly begin the first panel discussion of the day. The topic is Empowering Women in Tech Leadership, Strategies for Success and Growth. Empowering women in tech leadership not only enhances financial performance, but also contributes to economic and social growth. Addressing this topic is crucial for cultivating a fair, more innovative, and productive tech industry. By discussing strategies to overcome stereotypes and barriers faced by women, we pave the way for more equitable industry. I request the session moderator, Dr. Lisa McKee, and the other panelists to come on to the stage.
So good morning. My name is Dr. Lisa McKee. I have a PhD in cybersecurity and over 20 years of experience. So we're just going to go through the panel here and give quick introductions. So do you want to go next?
Hi, I'm Terry Green. I'm a CIO and CISO. I've actually am in my doctoral program, and I own a company called Light Technology Solutions that I actually have with my wife.
Hi, this is Swati. It's okay?
Mm-hmm.
Yeah, I'm Swati Shinde. I work at Saregama as a software engineer, so I'm basically software tester. So I manage a quality team over there, quality management team.
Good morning, everyone. My name is Wiley B. Oscar. I'm a manager at FedEx DataWorks, the global company FedEx. To note, I am here, and my comments today are my own and not of FedEx's, because this is very personal for me. I own multiple companies outside of what I do at FedEx, companies that I've started, and more importantly, my consulting firm. And I'm excited to be here to listen and learn from such a powerful panel.
Hello everyone, Ravi Teneti. I'm Senior Vice President of Engineering at Jory AI. We work in automation and AI for healthcare IT. As Wiley mentioned, my comments are my own, not a representation of my organizations. Excited to be part of this panel talking about a very important topic.
Great, thank you. Welcome all. So let's get started today with talking about careers, right? We all got to where we're at by different journeys, different school, different education, different career paths. Terry, do you want to get us started off? And what career advice do you have? What was successful for you to get to where you're at today?
I think it's actually doing something that we don't necessarily do, and is actually getting to know who you are as an individual. So my journey was a little bit different. I got to know myself, and I got to know my purpose. And when I knew my purpose, it was easier for me to walk into my domain. And my education came after that. I was actually a director with an associate's degree. And I was making buku money, but I still I wanted more for myself, so I just went for my education. Now I'm on my 6th degree.
Hi. How I started is I always wanted to be in science and technology. So my education path itself is in the science and technology. So my final education degree is MTech in science. So I did that, and of course after that I got got recruited in the technology team, and I, slowly trained over and then started doing the software testing. So of course junior level se leke, then currently I'm at a manager level, and then that's what I always wanted to do. So that's how it has came up to my mind, and that's how I have progressed with it. So it was always a short path that I wanted to do this.
Yeah, I think I think mine. I was very, very curious. I was kicking around a lot of cans, trying to figure a lot of things out, unsure of a lot of things, and just really finding allies and people who would invest in me and believed in me as much as I kind of saw things in me that I didn't see in myself. And so they started pointing me in different directions. So for me, my path took becoming an actor and a producer, nationally recognized in movies, so getting to the pinnacle of that for me. Then just really getting into the IT space is something I've done over the past 15 years. And being a leader in that space was important to me because of the influences that I had who are always, which is my purpose for being here, has always been women. Of course, I have guys that support me and that are there with me for sure. But my greatest advocates in terms of the ones that lifted me up the most and was there for me was that. So just being pointed in those different directions caused me to go back and get my MBA. I want to work on a 9th degree like Terry over here. That's awesome, sis.
I'm
That's
overachiever.
Awesome. Yeah, but then getting with a company like FedEx was really helpful because you got a chance to see the global atmosphere, everything from security to procurement to almost any industry you can think of. A logistics company like that has access to data, which I'm a data-driven person, so that helped out a whole lot. And it caused me to just go off and try to experiment on things on my own, like starting companies, ultrasound companies and different type of companies, but then consulting, which that's where the passion is, because you get a chance to go help people who were like me. Is the epitome of paying it forward, right? Is going and listening to the confusion, listening to all the different experiences that they've gone through, and just trying to lift that up. So that's a little bit of my story.
To me, in addition to the traditional skills that we focus on, like technical skills or functional skills, the thing that really helped me is to getting to know yourself, your strengths, what your strengths are and what your weaknesses are, and focusing really on the strengths and working with mentors and coaches and to kind of find workarounds to work with your weaknesses. So that has been a biggest factor in my 20 years of experience in IT. I have had mentors and sponsors who helped. I've had both male mentors and female mentors. When you think of mentors, it need not be very formal mentorship. people that you meet in day to day can teach you a lot. In fact, I developed empathy for the situations that I am not in from the people that I meet every day, including my parents, my mother, how she grew up, and my mother studied. After I was born, she completed her graduation. And so that's an inspiration for me to develop that learning mindset. And my wife, who has actually, studied and how she developed her skills. And my 8-year-old daughter now teaches me a lot about empathy for the situations that I am not in. So every single day, it's a learning process to learn about, how do you learn from others, and that makes you a lifelong learner. So I would say that is an important process in my career growth as well.
So a lot was said about mentors and sponsors, and so just for clarification, in case people don't know the difference, a mentor is somebody who's there to help guide you through your journey, whereas a sponsor is somebody that's speaking on your behalf and trying to help lift you up. And when you're in a room and your voice isn't being heard, then they're that advocate for you. So Swati, you talked about that. What mentors or sponsors did you have that helped get to where you are today?
Yeah, there are quite a few people in my life, who have helped me. If I have to talk about myself, I'm a bit introvert. Again, from being technical person, you're more about doing your things and representing it and all that. But speaking out loud in the meeting rooms or something like that was really difficult to start with. So there are people who were, helping me to say it and proving or giving me that confidence, saying that you can say your point, nothing is silly. So telling someone, that nothing is silly, just say your mind, and giving that confidence matters a lot. So whenever you get some people like this in your life, that really helps, and then you know that okay, whatever you're doing is not right or wrong, but yes, you have to keep doing to reach somewhere where you really find that fulfillment. Okay, this is how you get to this point. So that's how that mentorship has helped me.
You might, can I ask a question too to that? As one of the things that I hear a lot from a lot of the women that I might coach and consult with is that fear of speaking up, or fear like if I speak up,
Look silly,
I look,
maybe.
the multiple reasons, right? And that they feel like their voice, they can't be as strong as they want to be.
Right.
As a male, sometimes in a room for me, I might feel the same way, right? But my struggle is different, right? I carry male privilege, regardless of race. I carry that. We can talk about cricket and basketball and football, and we can bond, talk about our wives, and we can bond and do those weird things, right? For women, can you just tell me a little bit more about that fear or that feeling like your voice is really suppressed, especially in the IT space as well?
Look, is it suppressed? No. Many a times, what the journey that I have gone through is I feel that I should not look stupid. That is first thing. If I say this, will they judge me? And is it the right solution? So many times for women, they think from the solution point of view. That's what I have seen. And many a times you need not to look for a solution, you just need to understand the problem. And for that we need to speak up to understand that problem. And since I said that, we look from solution point of towards the problem, that's where that struggle happens. Is this the right solution or that is the right solution? No, dear, plus let's understand the problem. So you always need somebody who will tell you that let's understand the problem. And when that happens, you are automatically confident. You know that okay, this is what we are here to figure it out, and then solutions can always will happen.
One of the things that I've experienced is the fact that I feel like it's not status quo for everybody. Like if men speak up or a little bit more vocal about their opinions, it's acceptable. But when women do that, then it's like, wait, no, you just need to sit there and be quiet. Terry, what are your thoughts on that? Have you experienced that?
Unfortunately, I have not. I'm very vocal. And the truth of the matter is, I think it has something to do with the confidence I was able to build within myself first. So even moving forward, I found myself, I was a CIO for a school district, and I had a technology team, and I started doing meditation and yoga with them so they can actually become better people, not better technology people. They had to introduce themselves to themselves in the mirror. So when they were talking to me, they saw themselves on equal playing fields because I'm just a human. And those were the skills I kind of embodied in myself. So just recently, I was just on a panel discussion, and it was a lot of heavy hitters on this panel discussion. And one lady that was in cybersecurity at the White House, she tapped me and said, "Can you be my mentor?" And that was one of those moments when you go, huh. So it really doesn't matter where you sit.
Right.
Is the shoes in which you walk in and the confidence behind in the shoes in which you walk in. So I think we as people and as women in total, I try to extract race just like I do sex, right? So the truth of the matter is, I play golf. I do basketball. I got a wife, right? So I have, I guess, some kind of female privileges that I probably shouldn't have, but I do, right? And I hone in on them. And then it's really about understanding your audience. So if we can extract our own bias, figure out, because we all have it, whether we want to admit it or not, right? You know how many times I can be talking to a counterpart that do not look like me. And they might not know that my great-grandmother is Caucasian, right? So even though my hair is curly, and I cover it up majority of the time, you know, and so when I'm sitting here and I'm talking to them, I still can understand them from a certain lens because I was exposed to things that they wouldn't even understand the magnitude of, right? So I just try to extract it from that way and just move forward. But I haven't experienced that, so now I try to help other women not experience it either. But it's really self-awareness and confidence. So we built that. We can rule the world.
That's great. So Ravi and Wiley, you've talked about how you help women in your organizations. What programs or what things are you doing to help other women make sure that their voice is heard and their seat is at the table too?
I think one of the ways we can bring more women into tech leadership roles, that is the key point of discussion that we are having, is the first place to start is hiring. What are some of the systemic changes that we can incorporate in our hiring process so that more women are encouraged to apply, get selected to the roles that they are suitable for? As an example, in one of the organizations I worked, when I opened a role, I got 250 applications, and out of which only 30 applications from women. So the first question that we had to ask ourselves was there anything in the job description that we are making something wrong that actually keeps them away from applying for these jobs? So should we go back and look at the job description to make it more inclusive? And at the time of interview, are we having these diverse panels? Are our questions standardized so that we eliminate any kind of bias? We make it more fair recruiting process. The best candidate gets selected irrespective of anything else. And sometimes it's identifying the strengths. If a candidate is not selected for that role, if a woman applies for a role and this is not a suitable role for her, how do we identify her strengths and place her in a role where she could excel and move forward and move up in the technical career? So that is the first place to start with. And the other place is to have mentorship and sponsorship programs, establishing a formal mentorship program where more and more women would have access, a platform to connect with senior leaders in the organization so that they can help them to mentor, not only mentor, sponsor and speak for them in the places, in the rooms where they are not represented.
No, I echo that because that is a huge problem. I have the same issue, and not just with the corporation that I'm with, but also in my business in general. Some of them are just women-driven, so it's not a big problem. The sonography business is predominantly women, but in some of the others, the more technical side, you look in a room and you look at applications, and you're like, man, it's a bullpen, you know. It's a bunch of guys. And so I think that some of the things that I've done is just create pipelines to where those individuals are. How do you create a pipeline to the universities where you have, because there are studies will show that women are in engineering, all across engineering. In my engineering program, there were women in there, and some of them are my closest friends, right? So how do I create pipelines where they are aware of some of these things? Also, when they are there in terms of mentorship, and I think when you explain mentorship and sponsorship, I think that was spot on. My thought was I can't just be a sponsor. Like I gotta go all the way in and get dirty, you know, like in those rooms, those nuances, and when you talk about mentoring, how do I help this person to understand the landscape, not as a woman so much, because it's pretty obvious that in most situations it's pretty obvious that it's a woman. But now you're in this room. How can I coach you in the moment? Using Teams, using Zoom, sending notes, hey, this right here, allow them to speak to this, or I think they want this information from you, or you know, maybe you want to speak to something you said to me in our coaching session, to kind of just let them know. And we all could use it, but I think in some situations, women might need it a little bit more because they may not have the confidence of Terry coming into the gate, which is why it's awesome that you're paying it forward by talking back to them. They may not have the opportunities or the grit like Swati may have had. They may not have what Dr. Lisa has. Our responsibility at that point is to lean into that and be able to help their personal brand when they're not in the room. To go to those places and speak and say, we need you. To be empathetic and, guys, listen. Just listen. Whether you're passive or actively listening, listen, so you can understand what's happening, not just to them, but this stuff is happening in your space and in your rooms, so that you'll know what culture you're building in that space. You'll know whether you're building whether I'm building a space where the women that I have feel confident to speak up, feel confident to take chances and be curious and not feeling like they have to be perfect. I'll end with this. There's a statistic that I read that said women feel like they need to be roughly 80% prepared for a job or opportunity before they even go for it. Apply for it. Men feel like they need to be about 40%, and they go for it and apply. When they reverse engineered this is for all of us in the room, men and women. You raise your kids. When a little girl jumps on a table, you tell her, get down, she doesn't belong on the top of the table. When a little boy, this is in the stat, this is part of the context. When a little boy jumps on the table, you tell him to get down, he might hurt himself. So you're raising girls to be cautious and careful, and you're raising boys to be fearless. And that translates into those numbers. These numbers were taken by a global statistic. The reality is, we all know that everyone knows that you don't have to be perfect for a particular situation. You just have to be ready when that opportunity shows up for you.
No, I think that's a great comment. Some of us were actually talking about that at breakfast this morning. So yeah, very spot on about that. And I think, Ravi, that goes back to what you were talking about, where when you get applications, more are men, because that 40% is just like, I'm gonna just toss it out there and see where it splatters, whereas more women are a little bit more reserved. So Terry, when we talk about some of these things and going for those positions, right, a lot of us are going for positions that are, maybe middle management or executive positions. What does a leader look like for you, and what are things that you're doing to help shape that?
That's a great question, but can I piggyback off something you
Absolutely.
said first?
No, Terry.
Yes. I'm doing it. So I'll tell you one thing. I remember, I remember it was a job. I was still in college, right? So I was junior in college, and I was going to be the assistant chief engineer of the radio station, right? Mind you, I did my internship freshman year when they told me I couldn't. I lied on my application. That was the first year. They took 2 interns.
We're not condoning lying, guys. Okay.
They can't get me down. So that was the first time WGN took 2 interns. And I'll never forget, this guy was from DePaul, and he said, what school you go to? And I was thinking to myself, you're the idiot, I'm a freshman. I didn't say that though, but I was thinking it. And moving forward, I realized as I was developing, I was growing, I applied for a director position, and I was talking to a VP, and he literally told me he wouldn't hire me because I would show that he wasn't doing his job good enough. So sometimes, you know, you have to be able to you have to learn your audience. But it's very important as a woman that we understand the culture of the organization we're trying to get into. Maybe that culture ain't the right one for you. You know, and so you do have to do your due diligence and you have to do your homework. And I remember one time I went for it. I'm very technical. I'm very technical, right? So one thing, I was in a technical interview. They didn't give me one technical question. And then the guy said I wasn't technical enough, so I hacked him before he got out the door. And then did not take the job. So it's about how we actually stand up for ourselves as well, too. I gave him back his credentials. I just showed him he wasn't technical enough to stop me. So the truth of the matter is being able to pay attention to those nuances helped me become a better leader. So now to go on to what you're actually saying. So when I look in totality, I don't just look at the credentials that lie before me. I look at the individual because black and white is black and white. That paper can say a lot of good stuff, right? And people can go Google it right now. AI can create it, as you know, right? And it does not mean that's really representing the person that's on the paper. So I started to ask them, I asked 3 different questions. One about drive results. One about something personal, a personal achievement, to be able to kind of figure out what do they do outside of technology, so I can be able to figure out how creative and innovative they are. What are their career aspirations beyond me? And to be honest, if I'm talking to somebody that did tell me they don't want to be me, I don't want them to be in my company. Because I don't want you to be stagnant. I want to see you grow. And even if you are technical, you should say CTO if it's not CIO. Because you have to see yourself higher than you will ever be. And then from there, I can be able to put the floor behind you to help you get there.
Swati, what about you? What does the leader look like for you?
Yeah, leader is definitely someone who gives you the opportunity and is not scared of that you will take off a job. Definitely not. You know, but that happens. And you are still lucky enough that boy or the man was saying it upfront. There's so many times I have seen in social, events also it happens. They'll give you some other reason. They'll say that the shift timings are not matching. Okay, no, this is not exactly what we are looking for, and something like that. So they'll go diverse that thing, and they say that, no, you're actually really good than what we are looking for. So definitely these kind of things happen, and they do happen. So leader is someone, should be able to looking for a bunch of people who can replace him, because when you have those people in the room, the leader can grow, because there's someone who can actually look after for your jobs and your work things and your task and whatever it is, and then he can spread horizontally, vertically, and he can look after more things that he can bring to the team. So that's how leaders should actually
Everybody
lead
needs a
the
succession
team.
plan.
Yeah.
Right.
Yeah.
Yeah, my favorite is you're overqualified.
Yeah.
What
Yeah.
does underqualified look
Yeah, I'm like, I don't understand. So Ravi and Wiley, what are you looking for in leaders when you're hiring women for some of these positions on your team?
Well, you
It's
wanna
not a
go
trick
first?
question.
Wiley went dancing on the
No,
Yeah.
just
So-
want to make sure it's going to be impactful. So go ahead. I'm sorry.
So when it comes to technology, right? So leaders, we are looking at next generation of leadership in technology because we are in AI-driven world, innovation. All of these things cannot be realized if you don't have diverse teams, because you have to have diverse people who can bring different perspectives based on their different experiences. That siloed thinking cannot build the future. The future is built on innovation. So when you're looking at recruiting leaders who can bring diverse perspectives, that's number one. At the same time, who has empathy and understanding to encourage a different perspective. It comes from different experience. A person who, for example, Swati, you talked about the reasons for elimination. instead of searching for reasons for elimination, why don't you look at that person's strengths
Or their
and
weaknesses.
and place and suggest where they can excel, right? That's the number one job of leadership. Leadership is not elimination, leadership is inclusion. So that is the first thing that I would see when I recruit a leader, whether it's male leader or female leader, to build the future that we are all trying to build with technology.
I think similar to what Terry was mentioning as well. Just really looking for. I'm super intentional about coming into a space and looking and saying we need more women in here. I'm super intentional about that, and that sounds contrived to some, and it's going to feel contrived. But when you've been marginalized, it's necessary. So for me, I look for those strengths, I understand those weaknesses, and I look for someone that's coachable. I look for someone that has a certain level of tenacity and drive about them. It doesn't have to be as pronounced as some. Sometimes it's a little bit subtle, but that is my responsibility to find that and figure that out. That's why I've taken the job or the role as a leader is to do that, and I take pleasure in doing that. That's not hard work to me. That is fun. To be able to talk to everyone and figure out what they're going through, what their past was like, where their roadblocks, where their triggers, all these things. Try to find out, figure out, and then coach to those things. Yeah, you've dealt with I think we've all dealt with someone that's like, I can't help you because you're going to replace me. You've dealt with that insecurity before, right? That's all it is insecurity. All right, don't bring that with you here. And now I'm trying to show this particular person, here are some opportunities where you can flex your abilities. Here's where we need you in this particular space. That is dirty work, meaning you got to be able to have those tough conversations, because this is not about placating. It's not about complacency. It's about challenging, because those individuals who exhibit those type of skill sets where they're driven, they're motivated, they're technically savvy, so they can do the job, and bringing them in the room and just really supporting them in that way. So I think that's the way I see it.
That's great. So we have just a couple minutes left. And as we wrap up our panel, I always find it that as leaders and as technologists, technology is changing so rapidly.
Yeah.
And it's important that you stay current and stay relevant, whether that's through, training, education, certifications, programs like this. There's many, many different ways. And I also think that to be successful and a leader in what we do, it's the soft skills, right? We don't talk a lot about that, but it's the soft skills and how we treat people and the conversations that we have that are just as important, if not more so, than the technical skills. So if you would each just take a moment and just share what final advice do you have for other women that are sitting here listening to this and go, I want to do that and I want to be that person and inspired by this. How do we help them?
Well, I'll start, and Dr. Lisa hit the nail on the head, right? Soft skills are the one thing school can't teach, right? So technology is teachable. And a lot of times, technology have been deemed as we talk at people, not to people. So being able to kind of take out nuances, just taking a moment to understand who you are, work on your weaknesses and figure out how you can turn them into your greatest assets. So if you know you don't communicate well, take some public speaking classes. Think about what you aspire to do, because you may have to speak in front of other people, which could also talk in the mirror. I don't care if you do affirmations to yourself, they're still building up your speaking confidence. Write down notes if you're not a person that actually communicates well via email. Evaluate the tone in the message, because sometimes it's not the words, it's the punctuation. So being able to understand that is really important as we try to transcend and teach those soft skills.
Good points.
Yeah, I'll always say that, keep upgrading to the newest technology. It need not to be 100%, but you should be aware of it. So there are certifications available, there are some standard programs available, there are, boards which are running those exams and upgrading you for that. So that is one thing, that we as a woman, or rather everyone should do, is keep upgrading yourself towards the newest of the technology. Get certified. That certification gives you confidence. When you are certified, that eventually gives you confidence, and speaking up about that or implementing that newer part of the technology. So definitely, as you say, AI and everything, that we are going towards that. Definitely AI, will what AI should do, not write books for me, right? AI should do laundry for me. I'm very sure about it. Because writing a book, definitely I want to do. Okay. So that's where, the dedication and motivation, has to be segregated clearly what you want from technology. Upgrade accordingly, build it accordingly, and use it accordingly. That's what I'll always, say about technology and being updated.
Yeah, those are fantastic points because that's 100% true. Especially with, well, not the laundry part, but that's kind of true too.
The
though.
larger part was the soft skills.
That was a soft skill. no, but that 100%. I think that these points, you're an underdog. I'm saying it. I'm saying it because I see it. I know it. You got to be better than most people in that room. So this upskilling that we're talking about, staying ahead and abreast of what's going on, it's almost like you have to get in there and you have to know that to a level that builds your confidence where you can speak on that confidently. I'm not saying you need to go out and conjure up something and dedicate yourself into being the perfect person. No, it's not about that. It's really about understanding that domain very, very well, so that when you show up and present, you can speak to it and defend yourself when it comes to that. That's one. Number two, I would say be fearless and extremely assertive about finding someone that can be your sponsor. Finding someone that look in their eye when they're talking to you is nothing more than they're inspired by you and they want to be there for you. And talk to them directly about that. Hey, I need a sponsor, I need someone, I'm trying to do this, what input do you have? It may not work the first couple times. That's fine. You're gonna learn something from it and be fearless with it and keep moving along with the points that were said here, and I'm sure the point that Robbie is about to make.
Absolutely, those are all great points. I just wanted to conclude with a couple of points that are important for us. Organizations, first for the organizations. When we talk about soft skills, leadership skills, or communication skills, how do we establish training programs, development programs, which are customized for the specific problems that women face? So specifically customized for them. Do not throw some generalized programs at them and let them figure out problems, right? We have to be supportive of creating such programs. And number two, like Wiley stated, to the women in this room or who are listening outside of this room. So we need the skills that you bring to the table to build great future. So you have these soft skills within you. So be bold and go for the big, and you are going to get great success.
So Terry, Swathi, Wiley, Ravi, we're out of time, but this has been a great talk, and so thank you all for joining us today, and thank you, TechNet, and enjoy the rest of the conference.
And women, y'all got the soft skills. It's the men that don't. So that's why y'all got to come and help them, okay?
This is true.
Thank you.
Welcome. Thank you, panelists. Thank you for sharing your perspectives and making the discussion result-oriented and engaging for all participants. So, after a panel discussion, here comes the keynote session. Building resilient organizations, why you need threat intelligence as a part of your cybersecurity, best practices for cyber defense hygiene. Understanding the significance of threat intelligence is essential for safeguarding digital assets and reputation. The keynote session will provide you with vital insights into emerging threats, empowering proactive defense, and strengthening cybersecurity protocols for resilience against evolving challenges. I request our speaker, Sean Cooper, the director of CMU Cumru. I'm sorry, I just asked him that too. The director at Team Cumru to please come onto the stage.
And it's Cymru, so that's a Welsh word for your little anybody who doesn't know Welsh, which I really don't. If you're familiar with my name, Sean, S-E-A-N, as you see it, it's a Welsh name. Cymru is actually a Welsh word meaning Welsh. So if you didn't know that, there you go. All right. So it was interesting. It's had a few of the panelists here who have a cybersecurity background, so I will try not to slander the market too much, but okay. All right, so we're looking at, building some resilient organizations. So as we know, and you've heard from different capabilities and everything that people were talking about this weekend, were really about being innovative. A lot of the up-and-coming technologies and things. What you have to think about with cyber is that it has to be ubiquitous. As we continue to grow and have more and more capabilities and technologies that are united, if you will, via the interweb and the internet, you're going to have some level of security to protect your intellectual property, and God forbid it crosses into the boundaries of personal identifiable information that gets out there. There's enough of that out there as it is. So, yes, thank you. Let's see. So cyber threat intelligence, and the space that I'm in with my company, and this is not my company, I'm actually a global public sector director for sales and everything else. So I work with global governments across the world and trying to be trusted advisors on how they continue to address the threats out there that are continuous. So as the threats are evolving, as I mentioned, as we continue to grow technology, and from a government space, we're looking at a national security level for all of their citizens that they're protecting, all of you, from whatever country you live in, and actually if you decide to travel to other countries, to have the ability to address these threats that are ongoing. So threat intelligence is the next level. So to have the ability to see beyond the boundaries of all the software and tools that your company's paying for now, your firewalls and your intrusion detection systems and all of those things that have been around for a while, they are and have been evaded for several years now. The threat community, as you will, and you'll hear about it and how almost normal it is, their businesses, have learned how to beat those things. So cyber threat intelligence gives you that next level, the views outside of your environment. So for everybody who's not technical or in cyber at all, so here are some of the names, their motivations of who they are, the actors, the criminals themselves. Nation states, you probably hear that on the news all the time, or APT, Advanced Persistent Threat Groups. These organized companies almost, if you will, in some cases they're basically built as companies, who are out there. The terrorist groups, they're out there for ideological things. You've heard some campaigns where they'll go and they'll take down newspapers or they'll hijack people's websites. They're all out there. So you've got your thrill seekers who are a smaller group, but they're out there. That used to be a bigger group. That's a smaller group. They would classify a lot of them as some guy in his mother's basement and doing things like that. That's not really a big group, but they're still out there. So, insider threats. For those of you who are business owners, you fear that one, because that could be somebody who's disgruntled in your company, who might be passing out trade secrets and other things. So there's that as well. And of course, there's the random hacker. So a typical type of operations that are out there. This is up there, so pretty much everyone knows that you're not, it doesn't matter what size your company is, what industry you're in, you're a target. If you have a name, serial number, social security number, whatever, you are a target. You will, if you haven't, and I do this often when I speak, How many of you have received a letter from your bank, from Home Depot, from DMV that maybe your information has been as part of an attack? All right? Yeah. Almost everybody should have received, or multiples, like I have. So your information is out there. I mean, you should have some general things that you do with your own personal hygiene, but if you belong to things, you're a citizen, you drive a car, you have insurance, your information's out there. So that's those. So this is to show they're targeting everything that we do. Attribution. So ultimately, attribution is really understanding, and I mentioned there IOCs are indicators of compromise, and TTPs are tactics, techniques, and procedures of the attackers, which equal the attribution. It's the actual success of them in their attack, in plain terms. Dealing with a lot of these things, the bad guys are really good. They are really good. And most of us who are not actively defending, our household cyber defense, because we have jobs that we have to do other things for, they're out there and they're going to be going after you. So all of these things are out there. So from a business perspective, all you business owners and leaders, you have to understand if your cyber, your threat team is not doing a bunch of these things to address this, hire somebody, contract to someone, another entity to do that, because this is ongoing. It's just a matter of time before you will have that event happen. If it hasn't already happened in my early days, in my endpoint forensics days of 15 years ago, we used to say, if it hasn't happened that you're aware of, it might be going on right now that you're not aware of. So the typical cyber crime gangs, and I will get to some of the other information as well. They're run pretty much like companies, as I said. They will organize a small teams. They'll do some quick hits where they can raise some money internally. They'll hire staff. They have literally they go out and recruit. They have, I'm not sure that they have HR departments, but they do have somebody managing the money. They have someone who's going to be doing help desk. And if they are a provider to other people on the dark web, they might have a help desk to help you because the exploit that you bought didn't quite act like it was supposed to. So can you tell me how to fix that problem? Yes, there is that out there. There's a whole ecosystem in the world around supporting cyber threat because it's very lucrative, and we'll talk about some of those numbers as well. So, you see all the information there. It's almost scary. And I said to Wiley earlier, I said sometimes I wind up talking and it's a horror story. It's a horror show, a horror movie, because I have to tell you the cold facts of what we're dealing with out in the cyber world that surrounds us completely, that we've evolved to. And we always want to continue to move that innovation with technology, but don't ever forget about security. Don't ever forget about it. I'll leave you with an analogy for home builders. So typically with technology, and I think on the first day there was a panel about having a boundary around how you would secure things, where you want to limit. Do you want to put product out before you've actually done all of your due diligence with securing it, or do you want to just get it out there and have the market tell you how to correct things or pull things back? From our perspective, I would say you probably want to get a lot of that done up front. So as you build a house, typically anybody who's built a house, frankly, just rental, even an apartment, you have door locks. You have a basic door lock on the knob, and they might give you a bolt. But if you live in certain areas, typically you'll do a lot of aftermarket things, like you'll have a chain. You might put these Ring cameras and things on your house. You might have all these other things. They're not built into the house. You're putting that on after the fact because of what you know about the environment around you allows you to say, okay, they've only given me the bare bones because that's not really part of their business, and they really want you to have a good experience. And from a software development perspective, and those people who are in that, they want the user to have a good experience because they want you to come back. Having said that, you have all of those exploits that come out, and because of those things that have not been taken care of up front, it is now a vulnerability that's now spanning millions globally. So as I finish out on the gangs here, if they get to be really good at what they do, they will wind up having political connections, much like legitimate companies do in most countries. So they'll have some political connections, and in certain countries, that means they're going to get a little certain cachet to do things on contract work on behalf of those countries. I'll touch on a couple of those countries, but it's as I said, it is run like a regular business, legitimate business. There's one. So they are a major cyber power. Obviously, I think that's pretty well known. We don't really get into the details about why, but it is part of their growth plan. You know, as China would like to be a major political power by all means. We all have had experiences where you have maybe some counterfeit things, things that you buy, you have concerns of whether it's been hijacked or stolen by a Chinese entity, and now you have a fraudulent device or whatever, you know, with iPhones, and because they have great hackers. I'll just use that. Some of their threat teams are very good about stealing intellectual property and then providing it to the government. The government says, well, you know, we didn't do this. It just fell on our lap, so what would you like us to do about it? And we just throw it away. We fill it into the system, and it helps to grow the economy. So it is as I said, it's part of their plans. You know, China has made no secret about them wanting to be the great power of all time. We have a 500-year plan. They've broken it down even to 5-year plans as well. Their court system, their court system has had, as you see, they do prosecute some people here and there. I don't know whether it's performance art or not. I really can't speak to that in large, but it is. They actually we have verified, and me working with the U.S. government, we've been able to verify that they have facilities that they provide for some of these contractors, that they own the buildings, but they are all contractors. They're essentially 1099s. So whenever they put desks and internet access, and then they just go after whomever, and whatever they fish and catch, the government takes, and government is always of the plausible deniability. Well, they don't work for us. They only, they're in our building. We do provide internet, but they don't work for us. So, and as we were talking about earlier, they have a lot of really good people, who are really very creative, and this is the other side of innovation. They are, in order to crack a lot of these things, and we are, and I'll touch back into why software and things like that need to be better going out, or better protected before going out. As soon as there's a vulnerability in any update that you might get from Microsoft, or I hate to pick on anybody specifically, but to some extent, all of us have some level of Microsoft tools or whatever. As soon as there's a vulnerability, that ecosystem has already pronounced it and provided some way to exploit it, and it's ubiquitous across the world. So they're going to go out and they're coming after you with that. So it's something that it is something you always, as an individual, much less your companies, to pay attention to all those updates. Actually, one thing I want to go back to, if this is the right button, let's go back. Yes. So I mentioned on here, they had a recent exploit that my company was actually named we had a multinational, multi-corporation operation that we took down, a major healthcare-related and also small office, home office attack. And I think the next slide will touch on that. But they're going after these gaming entities who really don't have a lot of security in them at all. So any of you have children or any of you are gamers, those are like wide open places to be attacked. I'm not a gamer. My children aren't gamers, but I'm sure everybody knows somebody who's a gamer. They use that as a nice fundraiser because it's easy. And then they go after, specifically this one exploit, they went after the U.S. healthcare system with the money that they raised from all the gaming attacks. So the small office, home office routers that I talked about, and this is another one I wanted to touch on that this all probably affects all of us personally, because we all have, if you have internet at home, you've got a router. Well, these little small home office routers. And if you're a small company, you have that same type of router. My company was part of this. So if you have some of these end-of-life routers, and specifically they went after Cisco and Netgear routers that were end-of-life and were announced that they were no longer being supported. You know, maybe, in the case of like my mother, who's a retired engineer, but in the analog world is not really tied into the current world, was not really keeping on top of when a router is out of life, end of life, and not even paying attention to that email that they got that says you need to replace this router because it's vulnerable. So China had some of their attackers go after those routers globally. We were able to take down part of that multinational, multi-corporation operation that we were part of, was able to take down some of those actors. But the threat is still out there. And the crumbs of how to be successful are still out there. So it is still a threat. So if you haven't already done so, or if you're not somebody who's already on top of that, make sure your router is up to date. Unfortunately, they're not cheap to replace them. If your provider doesn't provide them for you within your plan, it's something you have to look at as well. Yes. What? Good question. So most of the providers do have some level, cursory level, of security at their level. So as the data that they're handling and passing through, they do have some of that security. The challenge is it doesn't really matter, if that makes sense. And then to answer your question, whether it's outside the firewall, inside the firewall, answer is yes. But yeah, and again, if that's not what you do, that's a challenge, which is up to you about keeping up with hygiene. So it's very complex, and yet it's very simple. Yes, we need security, but that still doesn't necessarily mean you're not going to still receive phishing emails. Still not going to mean you're not going to receive all these other things that have bypassed all the other systems, because, again, they're really good. They are using the same things they're using in their personal lives, so they know how this all works. So, it's man in the middle to a certain extent, which is another cyber that actually doesn't count for everything. Okay. Dr. Lisa and Terry, all right. Okay. All right. But anyway, so this group is still out there. Well, the group we took down, I think it was 40 individuals that we were able to arrest. Yes. But the threat is still there. Threat is still there. So North Korea. I mean, I could have used another country in the same region, but that was too easy. North Korea is also cyber power. This is another one who's on a It's more of a fundraising effort. They've been pretty much going after. I also use this because there's a lot of crypto talk here this weekend. So these guys are involved in that pretty heavily. That's a great way for them to raise money for some of their things. And they like ransomware. I hadn't talked about ransomware yet either. So ransomware, filthy, dirty way to take somebody down is, when you click on that that email or that attachment to that email, and I'm not going to speak for everybody, but I will say there are times when you're not quite on your game and you see something that looks like it's something else that you're normally seeing, and you just kind of click it, and halfway through the motion of you clicking that attachment, you go, no, I shouldn't have done that. And there you have potentially a ransomware thing where they just basically lock down. Everybody understand what ransomware is? Yeah, ransomware attacks. Okay, I don't have to explain that. Yeah. So there are certain scenarios, and I know the FBI here in the U.S. has procedures where they want you to do and not to do things. As a company owner, I would advise you to at least engage them. It's not necessarily doesn't necessarily mean it's going to be a successful scenario or not, but at least to be able to get into the process and make sure allow the police to take care of this and deal with it. We have seen where the ransomware attacks have basically destroyed companies where they call the attackers bluff. And all of their intellectual property went up in smoke. So, yes. Absolutely. Yes.
So I'm not sure if you're familiar with the ransomware attack that happened with FinTrack in Canada.
No.
This is the financial services reporting agency that handles all the money service licenses in Canada. About in March, they were attacked, and the system went. It's not official, but there was a ransomware attack, and basically everything is down. You cannot register. They just took all the systems down, and I think they call it a bluff. Because you can't register your license, and you can't report. So who enjoys those type of things? Russian hackers, Chinese hackers, because all of a sudden now the money launderers can do what they want within the financial sector, and there's no reporting.
Yeah.
Government
Oh, absolutely. I mean, remember, that's the environment that I live in. So I've been dealing with governments for 25 years. Yeah, they are the major targets everywhere because they have access to the whole country of information. So, but as I put up that other slide earlier, the other industries don't think that you're immune to attack. So, but yes, I had a little thing at the bottom. You remember that movie a few years ago? I forgot what his name. What was the guy's name? Actor, but it was the interview, and they were making fun of Kim Jong-un, Joe Rogan, and what was his name? Yes. Have you seen James Franco lately? I don't think I have either. Yeah. So they didn't like that, so they went after Sony. And Sony's got a pretty robust cybersecurity team. Doesn't matter. Sometimes it's. I think one of the earlier slides I listed and I didn't mention it. The challenge we often have, even when you have a really strong defensive team, you've got a great portfolio of tools that you're working with in that team. The issue often is, and anybody understands the OSI model, we kind of make up we made up the thing called layer 8. It's between the person, or I should say between the keyboard and the chair is the problem. It's people. People make mistakes. People, even if it's not malicious, say, as I said, somebody might click on something, or someone might have the same password as everything else on their device, or their home address, or whatever, or something that they, that's the biggest problem why it's going to also continue, because it's people. We all have people. So you kind of touched on it, Ty, briefly, about what's the common denominator in a lot of this. It's financial. So monetary loss projections. This is what we saw from last year. That's trillion. If you don't have to count all the zeros. It's $1 trillion. And frankly, I think the 10.5 is low. Because we don't have 24 is not done yet. So, but those are the projections. Even with those projections, it's ridiculous. That's how much money is lost, and you can see all the different derived per hour, second, all of that stuff. It's in and of itself is a massive economy of money. So, what do we do about that? I mean, I mentioned all the things. These are the things of why you want to have some of those threat intelligence capabilities. I don't want to make this about a personal commercial, so I'm not going to do. If you want to have a conversation about that offline, we'll do that. But these scams they're getting better and better. And the other big topic this weekend, AI, generative AI, those weird emails and text messages you used to get that you could say, oh, look at the weird E on that word, or why they misspelled that. That's going to help those phishing emails be a lot better. The syntax is not going to be off as much. They're not going to misspell things as much. So, that's one of the things why I'm always like with generative AI and those things. I'm like, I know it was great. It was created for the right reasons, but like a lot of things, the bad guys got on it really early, and they're using it for bad. But yeah, somebody. Okay, I thought somebody asked something. So, I'm not even going to go into this stuff. But, I'm sorry. Oh no, all right. I don't have my glasses on, so I can't read that. Okay. So I have 1 minute. Anybody have any questions, any thoughts? Yeah. Why? Mm-hmm. Yes. It's just like, well, just like with AI itself, it's still preliminary. I mean, it's from our perspective personally, it's not necessarily something we do. We're more on the IP side, so address to address, some of that visibility of the conversations that your IP devices are having outside your network. So it's a little bit higher level than that. It's not really into the content within those digital streams, but we can sidebar that. Some of our analysts are working on that, as I was saying. Yeah, this is something that's ongoing. We actually have a policy where we're not using it at all in company. The marketing team, if they want to use certain things, it's offline on their own personal devices. So it's something that we have basically said because, well, we can talk about my company and who we are and what we have access to, because it would hurt all of us if some of that got out. So, all right. Thank you. Oh, I didn't put up the slide. I had my contact, but if you need contact, see me outside.
Okay.
Thank you.
No problem. Thank you, Sean, for that invaluable information regarding cybersecurity. Okay, so moving further with the next session of a panel discussion on the potential of tech for good, crafting solutions that benefit all, part 2. The topic centers around technology's crucial role in addressing societal challenges and fostering positive impacts for individuals and communities alike. By examining innovative solutions and sharing insights, we aim to understand how to develop and implement technologies that address press global challenges and benefit everyone. Let's quickly welcome the session moderator, Jeffrey James Seyfried, and the other respective panelists on the stage to continue this conversation.
Is Jeffrey here? I think Jeffrey was injured, unfortunately, but we can go on without him. Okay. Oh, is he here outside? I got an email from him on Friday saying he would be late because he hurt his foot or something. So I don't know if he made it today.
Not sure. I don't think I've seen him.
Yeah, I think so. It was Friday.
Mhm.
Something that happened. So I don't think we have a moderator, but we can probably.
We can forge ahead anyway.
Yeah, we'll go moderatorless.
Right?
The true conversation, I guess.
Well, yeah, actually, Jeffrey was kind enough to send us a list of questions. I guess we could start with introductions. Oh, yeah. Do you want to just jump in and moderate? Oh, yeah, I don't have, do you have the doc?
I have.
It was just like 2 or 3 questions. Yeah. Let's go ahead and introduce.
Sure.
You want to go first?
Yep. So my name is Harsha Surigareddy. I'm the owner and founder of Threads and Solutions. We are a software and a staffing firm. We focus on Java-based technologies, all the way from developing custom software solutions on the web, a web-based platform, or a custom, application, or an app-based solution. Thank you.
I'm Nicholas Williams. I'm the Vice President of Software for Devio. We're a blockchain company that's kind of approaching the technology from a new direction.
I'm Kevin Haggart. I own a company called WeConnect Nevada. We do wiring infrastructure for communication systems. And yeah. That's pretty good.
Hi everyone, I'm Kenneth Sealsnut. I'm a lead software engineering manager for a conversational commerce company called Wizard AI. And then I also wear a couple other hats where I'm a computer science researcher for Yale University, and then co-founded a research project called Science Stories that's aimed at amplifying the lives and works of women and people of color in the sciences.
Hi everyone, I'm stepping in for Jeffrey Tyrell Moodley with Yaz Money, and I'll just be moderating today. So the first question is, how can governments, businesses, and nonprofits collaborate effectively to maximize tech's positive impact? Discuss your views on how technologies such as AI, blockchain, quantum computing, IoT, augmented virtual reality could transform industries, economies, and societies. Additionally, focus will be placed on cultural practices like politically driven DEI programs that have disrupted these same environments.
Got it. So I think to start off, we need to address the importance of government in this particular space, because we are in a space that's not regulated, but we are seeing a lot of risks, right? We just went through a presentation about what the impacts are when this is abused. But there's a fine line between how much government intervention versus innovation is needed. I think one example, I know there's a lot of regulations in Europe about personal information, which is a good step in the right direction. I know there are some other items that I believe the European Council has proposed related to common, what's the word I'm looking for? The charging cables and things like that, like where they're like, we need to standardize USB-C, so that there's also a commitment to reduce waste and things like that happening in the world.
I think in terms of, collaboration between government, nonprofits, and private companies is essential to make progress. And one of the best ways to support support that is clarity of kind of the mission or the goals. I personally am a big fan of SMART goals. So if you haven't heard of that, that's specific, measurable, actionable, relevant, time-bound goals. Once you have things like that, it makes it just a lot easier to collaborate, because I'm sure everyone here has been in meetings and stuff where it's kind of, people have some shared sense of what they want to do, but it just never coheres into something solid. And so the faster you can get to like solid metrics, especially, the better. You know, I don't know if it's a real Einstein quote, but there's a quote out there that you measure it and it will improve. And I think that's true just because it draws attention to whatever that thing is, and it kind of makes the process more empirical. So that helps. The collaborations I've seen, and I've been on most sides of that. I've worked with governments, I've worked with nonprofits and private corporations. Collaboration works better when there's just a very clear goal.
Yeah, absolutely. There's so much good that can come out of all the technology. Obviously, me running a company where we install the cabling and wiring and infrastructure for all these systems.
Mm-hmm.
There's so many things as far as security-wise, doing the security cameras, but there's also a lot of potential for, I guess, the risks with the AI as we learned. But the good things about it are really amazing. For example, I always go back to, I have some older parents, and the technology stuff is only like helping their lives, as they don't want to adopt it right away, and it takes a little bit for them to get used to it. But things like Google Nest and stuff like that helps my mom immensely. So as she's sitting there, because she's mobily impaired, and so she's able to do different things in her house and things like that. And so there's just so much good that comes from technology, and that's just one area. I mean, we see it in everything that we do, but tech only improves everybody's life, but it also has the potential for bad things. But how do we keep that and mitigate those risks is the biggest thing we're looking for.
Yeah. And building on the collaboration side of it, interoperability is something that's becoming more and more common among software engineers across each of these spectrums. So a lot of the work that I do is building bridges from industry and academia, so that when developers are building similar products, it's shared across, in terms of open source code that can be installed across multiple computers or multiple software pipelines. And so that, to the risk and security vulnerability question, there's more actors that are using the software and are testing it, and if there is a security vulnerability, there's fewer people that would allow you to keep that as a problem going forward, just out of nature of so many people as being deeply involved into the code creation process can go in and address patches instantly, versus a closed source network where if there is somebody who infiltrates that, you might have a very segmented set of developers that would actually be able to make those changes. So that's like one of the areas that I try to focus on is finding areas that attribution and software engineering best practices can be applied in industry and then in academia. One of those is through the image interoperability framework, where a bunch of researchers and universities are collaborating with big organizations like Google and Microsoft and the W3C Corporation, a consortium which determines how images are processed on the web. And if every pocket of our sectors are building this out in our own ways, if there is an issue such as a cybersecurity threat, or even a lack of transparency of people, spam uploading and downloading images, you have actors that are personally have some skin in the game into these systems that are taking action immediately when these things happen. And it's easier to have a lot of these transferable pieces of technology as part of a larger ecosystem, so you can really focus on what are the nuances that your sector is taking part in. And so out of that, a lot more time development can be spent on the social good and the actual value added for businesses, and less on building foundational infrastructure.
So, continuing from our conversation yesterday, Nick, I see some interesting topics here. And, since you're involved in AI, in the crypto, the blockchain space, it speaks about how can governments help to bring a positive societal impact, right? Could you give some examples in the work that you do?
Well, that's a major problem in the work I do right now, actually, is the government hasn't been very clear about what the boundaries are, and it's had a chilling effect in my industry for sure. And yeah, I mean, like I was saying before, it comes back to clarity. I mean, technology at the end of the day is amoral, which I mean, it has no ethics, in itself. It's just a tool. So, like Vincent Allen stated it really well yesterday, that people will do great things with new technology, but they'll also do horrendous things because it's all about how you use the tool, and it can be used or misused. So governments really need to state like what the boundaries are in a sense. That is kind of what regulation is. And so in crypto especially, securities regulation is just way behind the technology. And that for us, especially as a very white hat company that wants to follow the laws of the U.S., it paralyzes us compared to DeFi companies that are just going to run ahead and do whatever they like. And it's a problem, like with a smart contract. I was touching on this yesterday. I don't think I fully made my point. You could have a contract that's like an assassination contract or something. There's nothing technological stopping that from happening. So that's why there needs to be oversight. And I liked what you said. In the software development lifecycle, there's this concept of PRs, pull requests, and that's essentially peer review. The faster you can get that peer review happening, the higher quality you're going to have.
I think timing is a big concern in regulation, especially in the crypto market. Cryptos have been around for a while now. It's not recent.
Over 10 years.
Over
Yeah.
10 years, absolutely. But just for curiosity's sake, right? Do you think implementing regulations, maybe say 8 years ago, right? Because we don't want to go all the way to the inception as soon as the idea comes and government starts stomping down on it with regulations. Do you think there was a benefit for the government to not step in at its early stages to promote efficiencies within the industry?
You could, I don't know, as an analogy, I feel like the government was fairly wise in around 2000 with, I think, the DMCA. And there's like Section 203 that kind of gave social media networks kind of blanket protection from the content they were hosting. And then now it's been called into question. All the social media companies have kind of consolidated and they're trying to build fences. And so that may go away or something. But that was pretty intelligent, I think, of the US government to just create that blanket immunity for a while to foster new technology. So 8 years ago, something like that crypto would probably be much more advanced right now in the US if they had done that. At this point, there's, I think securities law is just very conservative, and there just needs to be clarity, really, more than anything else.
This actually reminds me of an article I read maybe around the time Instagram started doing their paid per ad. So this is kind of more marketing focused. So there was an ad, I believe it was from a Korean company. This was malicious advertising as far as what was noticed. It was a very clever and simple way they got people to go to their site. And obviously the site was very much malicious, and there's all kinds of viruses and stuff that were installed on your computers. So the way they did it was very simple. They had a picture, some clothing or whatever it was, I forget the exact content, and they put a very thin black line, making it look like a piece of hair had fallen on the screen. And as soon as they tried to swipe that piece of hair off their screen, thinking that it was a piece of hair, it would then immediately redirect them to their website. Right? So I think and since then I've seen massive shifts in the policies associated with digital marketing. We've seen a lot of compliance around text messages now. You have to be, I forget what the compliance is, but there's some pretty strict procedures to be able to advertise or market through texting, and I'm sure the same applies to all kinds of digital media these days. And I would say that's an area where, the government really did step in, and some of the older generation that will potentially fall into these pitfalls, they're benefiting from it. And I think at this point in time, it is a good time to step in, right? Like, the digital marketing area has started to mature to a certain extent, and the regulations that are being imposed are starting to benefit everyone.
Yeah, and customers really do appreciate that, and users of these tools too. And my full-time job being an engineering manager for a text message-based e-commerce company, where they're building an AI chatbot that essentially allows you to have a personal shopper just as a text message thread. That's one of the first things that we look at, is how do you be upfront about opt-in messaging and differentiating marketing versus transactional messaging, and also understanding the responsibility that the company has with being stewards of someone's personal data, especially over transaction, and how to not make sure that older generations aren't sending threatening or messages that could be a threat or expose them to threats such as credit card information and things like that, and building safe bridges from a text message onto a web portal that's secured, because SMS by itself is inherently insecure, but a very convenient channel. And so how do we maximize some of those protocols that everyone texts their friends and it feels conversational, but then also using our platform, while it is a part of industry and we are trying to make money out of it, also using it as an opportunity to teach our users and our customers that we do have ethics, and we do want to remind them not to expose themselves to any threats or targets, and doing everything in a secure transaction. And so it's very interesting seeing how marketing has become very much regulated over the last, I would say, 5 or 6 years, especially after we've seen the impacts on political elections and disinformation. I think there's been a huge surge on, no matter what political ideology you have, but just being very clear about where advertising lands as we're interacting with technology.
So, going back to the benefit of tech for good. Yesterday we spoke about AI, and we had some really interesting discussions with some people in the audience. And one of the questions that I had was, we love, as tech guys, software engineers, we love technology, obviously. We love AI. But there's a point where automation gets to, it's too much. Where people start losing jobs, right? As software engineers, as people that are building these systems, do you think that we have a responsibility to make sure that we don't put too many people out of work? Are there certain automations that don't need to happen, right?
It's a great question.
Yeah, I think there is a fine balance, right? Like, back in the day when manufacturing, like, America was all in on manufacturing, and then we started having these automated robots, mechanical hands, and tools to kind of replace those jobs for the sake of making everything more affordable. And there was a big concern back then. What are people going to do once they lose their jobs? And then we developed this entire industry related to software that kind of replaced a lot of those jobs. And something similar is happening now. We're automating all the coding aspects of things, and most tasks are starting to become automated. And so now the question becomes, what is the next phase for people? And and technology is actually the answer to that as well. Because right now, with the availability of online courses, I know Microsoft is spending billions and billions of dollars in educating people to get skilled, trained on the next and greatest technologies. I think, and that's what it's going to be, right? People are always going to be needed, right? If you're working on a mainframe or a database, whatever, there's a physical component to it. There are people that are going to be needed. There is going to be quality controls, checks that need to happen, and only a person will be able to do that. I guess until AI starts becoming not AI, but actual intelligence.
Sentient?
Yes, sentient. But the idea is probably, at least my perspective is, if it does get to the point where we do have intelligence, hopefully, whether if we're in a Terminator situation, let's hope not, the other alternative is it's going to free up people to do a lot more. Your time is going to be given back to you. You're going to be able to buy things at a much cheaper cost because now everything is about to get automated, which means the cost of labor is going to go significantly down, which means the goods that you're buying are going to go down. Looking at it from the time perspective, you can go on vacations now a lot more frequently. In fact, I would hesitate to say that most people will be on vacation 90% of the time. I don't know. But just, it is very speculative at this point, but we are looking for what is that next industry that people are going to get trained on, and technology is going to be the tool used to train that next generation of workforce.
Yeah, I think about this a lot, actually. And automations should be good for humanity, right? Like, it should free us from drudgery and, like, unpleasant work. I mean, if we don't do that, we're kind of really fumbling the ball. So I'm all for automating everything we can. And I think there's kind of two layers of things that are probably especially likely to be automated, and it's kind of really mundane, repetitive physical tasks, which, you know, much of that is already automated with factories, robotics. And then there's more white-collar tasks that are also fairly repetitive and kind of standardized. And I think LLMs will be able to automate that. But I do think, you know, there will maybe be less work needed to be done than in the past. Although, you know, ironically, where we are now, there's more demand for jobs at the moment, right, than there is supply in a lot of places. So maybe more new jobs will just kind of naturally evolve. You know, you've got social media managers and influencers now. Those jobs, you try to explain that to someone 30 years ago, they won't understand what you're talking about. But at the same time, I do think we need a robust safety net of some sort, like a UBI or something, ultimately, to support everybody. And I say that as a raging capitalist, actually. A safety net would free people to take more risks and not have to worry about, you know, what happens if this fails and I run out of money. And I think that would actually release a lot more dynamic potential in our economy, personally. How we get there is a little bit complicated. I don't think it's like an overnight change, but hopefully, you know, it does lead to everybody having more leisure time. I mean, if automation doesn't do that, then, you know, what are we doing?
Yeah, I actually was thinking about that too, where we're oftentimes faced with, you know, people feeling like AI or technology is going to replace their work. It's both a short-term and a long-term problem, and I think it's very easy to think of the long-term where, yeah, you know, new jobs will get created, we can upskill everyone, but if someone is, you know, 50 right now and about to approach, you know, the last milestones in their career before they start thinking about retirement, they're not going to go start learning how to be a prompt engineer in 2 weeks. Like, we also need, you know, things that can happen now for when some of these jobs do get phased out, and things like a UBI, a universal basic income, or areas where you can pinpoint where is automation impacting existing jobs, and maybe you do accelerate retirements because we've generated so much wealth. I think this is one of those times where we have a lot of history behind us where we've seen technology replace entire groups of labor forces, and it creates these deserts in big communities. And you know, even thinking about manufacturing, going from, you know, the horse and buggy to automobiles, a lot of the towns that were around in those areas were just completely desolate. And even we're seeing the same thing with automobiles as well, where as we're moving from gas to electric, you know, cities like Detroit, where could have definitely benefited from more subsidies, more money being put back into the community to stand it up, that had nothing to do with upskilling or transit, you know, just saying, oh, new jobs are going to be created. It actually takes somebody, you know, stepping up and actually going right to the communities to make sure that money is going back based on the wealth that's created.
Yeah, just to go back to, I don't think that we should be stifling any kind of innovation to prevent people from losing jobs. It's kind of a weird area, right? We'd be kind of getting into kind of a philosophical debate, right? Is that our job? not really. Our job is to advance things forward and do that, and hopefully it all works for good, right? I think where we can help a lot of people is in teaching people about the technology, right? Just getting it out and awareness and things. Take, for example, like the trucking industry. There's going to be major disruptions coming up in that, obviously. I mean, they're going to have self-driving vehicles and all that go into those. So now what can we do? I mean, as long as they have the information for the people that are going to be disruptive, you can have them learning and training on new systems and new things that they can do. So when that point comes, that they are aware and have somewhere else to go or some other thing to do. But yeah, I don't think that we should be stifling the technology. I think we just go and then let that stuff kind of work out, but at the same time educate others on how the tech can help them.
Trucking is a good near-term example, because I think if you look at cargo ships, you could get a sense of where trucking is probably going. I think there will still be truck drivers, but their job description is probably going to change a lot. The truck will drive itself, but they're also needed still to provide security for the cargo and to do maintenance types things on, mobily. I guess one other thing I wanted to mention on kind of the flip side of this is there's a stat going around a few years ago that like 30% of people are just totally disengaged at work. They don't enjoy their work. They just don't want to do it. There's, punching in, passing time. In America in particular, I think there's going to be this cultural change that we're going to have to contend with, where the work ethic in our culture is so strong and people feel, so bad or dishonored if they don't have work in a way. Personally, I don't think it's a good solution to just have the government or something like give people work, like a job guarantee. I think that will actually stifle innovation. What we really need to do is respect people more and realize more that, lots of things we don't consider work is work, like taking care of your house, taking care of your family, like those things are important. And I hope in this century we can get to a point where people can get paid to do that, and everyone recognizes that that has value to society as a whole.
I want to give an example of how automation has led to a good thing, because we're talking about how automation is taking away jobs. But let's take the healthcare industry for example. We know that in a hospital, nurses, doctors, these highly educated technical fields are severely understaffed. A lot of doctors usually work 60, 70-hour weeks, if not more. But a lot of hospitals and the medical industry in general is starting to put out AI-based consultations. This is an area where I think, a customer goes in, logs into an app, whatever it may be, whatever the platform may be, and, they do self-diagnosis, right, using AI, machine learning, and this severely reduces the burden on the hospital, because now a lot of the stuff that takes an in-person visit, takes an hour or half an hour from a doctor, where it could just be, hey, you have a cold. It happens, right? This is where I see there is a lot of good potential for automation and reducing the burden on highly stressful industries.
Mm-hmm. And enabling those professionals to handle more clients at a time.
Absolutely.
I definitely don't think doctors and lawyers are going away.
They are not.
Definitely not, but I think their job might be very different in the future. Rather than kind of figuring everything out and addressing the client, they may become a little more like an interpreter, where, AI says, these are the 5 most likely things, and then the doctor kind of colors that in for you and helps you make an informed decision. So it's more of a communication and interpretation job than diagnostic directly.
Absolutely.
Although, I'm sure there's going to be edge cases and stuff where they have to watch out, where it's like, well, it's a 50-50 this or that, and, the AI sometimes hallucinates about this, or, the doctor will have ideally in-depth knowledge about that that'll help them kind of decide edge cases.
There is a fine line between how much do you trust the AI versus, okay, I just want to go to a doctor and have them. But there's also human error to account for as well,
Exactly.
which is also going to hopefully get reduced.
If you look at self-driving, the error rate of automated cars is much lower than humans. And it'll probably be similar for many industries, but humans will still be necessary, absolutely.
And I think the overall theme here, like the reduction of jobs and all that stuff, this is a very long-term process. This is it's going to be a very stretched out process. It's not going to happen overnight. I think in the interim,
I think in the software engineering space, you're already seeing
we're already seeing
huge
it.
numbers. Where I mean, I think it was Microsoft.
Mhm.
They reduced their workforce by quite a significant amount because of automation and AI. I'm of the opinion that in the next 5 to 10 years, like there's going to be huge layoffs because of AI. And I'm a pessimist in that way. I follow Jeffrey Hinton. Anybody follows Jeffrey Hinton, the godfather of AI? I know, Nick, you don't agree with his.
Right, no, I'm not a symbolist.
But I watched him live at Collision last year, and he basically quit AI because he's gone on a mission to warn people about the dangers of AI. I think as software engineers, we tend to be overly optimistic about AI and think that we paint these rosy pictures that AI can do no wrong and everything's going to be awesome. We're all going to be out of work, and the government's going to give us UBI, and
I mean, there's
hallelujah.
Well, to jump in, I think one of the most dangerous things that could happen with AI is if we get into if it's like 99% effective, and we get into this complacent state where we just assume that AI is correct, because it's not always going to be correct, and that is probably the most dangerous outcome if we treat it like a false god, practically.
So there's a good example. So Amazon stores. I'm not sure if you've seen or been to any of them recently. So the initial concept was there's going to be an AI that's going to watch what you're putting in your cart and automatically bill you. You don't have to ever pull out your wallet. It's all tied to your Amazon account. I'm not sure how many people know what actually happened there, but the quality of that AI was so poor that they had to hire a team. I'm talking hundreds and hundreds of people in India to manually add items to their cart and bill those customers, right? That's an example of AI creating a new industry right there. But AI is not foolproof. It will take time, and a lot of time if.
Well, and I can do it
estimates.
with software engineering. Yeah, I would definitely take the other side of that bet. I don't actually disagree with you that there's going to be big layoffs, because it's not that software engineering will not be hugely in demand in the future. I think a lot of these big corporations are actually overstaffed, and so I would not be surprised if we see layoffs because of that. But I think there will be a lot more small and medium-sized corporations that find viable niches in the market that just didn't exist before. And it'll, like I was kind of saying with doctors and lawyers, AI will be a tool for software engineers so they can do more with less time, but they will still be necessary for quality control and really making sure that the product is fit for purpose. Essentially what programming is already is just telling the computer what you want it to do, and that's the hard part, is figuring out what you want to do. The AI can't do that for you.
Yeah, it does seem like there's going to be less of engineers getting phased out, but more of the role of product managers and engineers starting to get more put together, and there's a lot more overlap in those roles where, product managers can speak more technically because it doesn't require as much, depth in writing lower level programming languages, and software engineers can start thinking more higher level on what does the product actually, what's the focal point of this product. That can be a much larger product versus historically engineers would have very small tickets that were part of one feature maybe. They can start thinking about projects at a time versus user stories at a time. And so I think that area is going to be a welcomed transition for both fields, because historically there's always been tension there where one thinks that they're not technical enough, one thinks that they don't have the business savvy, and that is kind of that cross-pollination there. And then to your point earlier on like highly regulated industries, I think it's been really exciting seeing that for the first time doctors and lawyers are being brought to tech companies to build the future of these tools. And I think there needs to be more of that, and there needs to be more of a spotlight on that work, and not someone who historically was a software engineer building a product for the next legal chatbot. I think instead it should be lawyers in the room with engineers and thinking about what are the actual real world use cases. And so it's in a way changing the job, but it's not in a way that they have to learn new skills for a new use case. It's more so how do you articulate those skills to AI or to whatever the next phase of technology is.
Yeah, it really opens you up to, as tech people, to get into a lot of other industries that don't have that. For example, in a lot of doctors' offices now where they're doing telehealth and stuff, we have to upgrade their networks and things like that so that they have good video equipment and stuff like that to interact with their patients. And that's just a way that saves them a lot of time, but it's also a way to save the people that need to go to these appointments. Once again, I go back to my parents, and instead of having them go to the doctor anymore, we can have those mundane visits that a lot of old people get. You know, they can do it from the comfort of their house so that it doesn't put, you know, extra stress on their body, and just going places and doing all those things. And as, you know, the baby boomers or whatever age, there's going to be a great need for that. So I think there's a lot of industries that we can help
It saves
serve.
time, it saves stress, it reduces the chance of infection even.
Yep.
And I think another part that isn't talked about enough is, you know, the doctors and lawyers use case, where it also removes so much time being spent on practice and more time back into research. Thinking about health is a big one. There's been an abysmal lack of research done on women's health, and I think that is something that when there's fewer doctors having to manage thousands of patients in an overcrowded hospital, a lot more doctors can go back to research and exploring fields that have been underserved historically and build more data sets to then improve our medicine for our entire population. And then that further decreases the amount of people in hospitals and patients that they have to have. So it kind of creates this like virtuous cycle and a flywheel where their role gets more appreciated over time as well as easier to do.
So one of the things that I want to touch on your health story. Has anyone read about the new AlphaFold from, I think it's from Google?
I've heard of it. I don't know much about it.
But I think recently that was one of the positives of AI. I do support AI in certain situations, but have you read about how AlphaFold can predict the proteins and come up with new ways?
Well, and that's a really tough problem that people have been working on for decades.
Yeah.
And there's the new technologies that are going to become possible are going to be amazing with stuff like that. Just the amount of experimentation that can be automated. You know, we can figure out new drugs, new proteins, things like that. I mean, at some point we're going to be making nanomachines, and you know, you could have like inject nanomachines in your body that do some kind of surgery or something, and you know, help improve your way of life. But those are very complex. They need to be, you know, rigorously tested. Make sure that there's solid boundaries on what they can do. And I think that's I think in all these fields, you know, a lot of what's going to be important is making sure that tech is not crossing dangerous boundaries. Like right now with robotic surgery, one of the most important aspects of that is that the robot won't let you accidentally like slice an organ you're not working on. You know, it's actually putting the boundaries on where the work is, and that's ironically what's going to make it the most useful. You know, it's not what can it do, it's what can it purposely not do. If that makes sense. Did I blow your guys' minds?
I guess we can open it up to the audience if there's any
Does anyone have a question?
questions.
5 minutes. Well, yes, I mean, there's so much potential overall for automation to do good. And I think we just have to move carefully and with intention, and that's how we're most likely to have the most benefits and the least downsides.
I think it was Satya Nadella, the CEO of Microsoft.
Mm-hmm.
One of the things he was talking about in terms of releasing AI now and not waiting until it's perfect was this exact reason. We wanted people to get their hands on it and start using it because it's inevitable.
Mm-hmm.
And I think the evolution of what we're talking about is inevitable, right? We talk about coal back in the day. One of those families, the
Yes.
Being able to embrace it so it can be a helpmate more than anything else.
Mm-hmm.
So my clients that are doctors and nurses, what they want to do is they want AI to help inform the patient, to educate them on what's happening to them, and not having them go Google search something, WebMD something, or even go and use AI in a general sense to start panic, and flood the hospitals, and flood the clinics, and flood these things. But instead, create some type of relationship where they can have access to this information, the doctors and nurses can have access to this information, and now they can have a healthy conversation about what's happening, what's going on. Automotively, even when you talk about the autonomous vehicles, the purpose of it is not to replace the truck driver, but to allow you in your supply chain to move this product from here to there. Right now, regulations say that these drivers, and this is automated, the drivers have to stop every 10 hours and take a rest for 7 hours before they can get back on the road. Well, that means that this product is going to get from here to here in 2 days. When you start doing autonomous, this person can possibly sleep in the cab while the car is driving and then wake up and they assist each other. And they're communicating while they're
Right,
driving.
exactly.
So starting that supply chain, now you're getting stuff across the country a lot faster. And what is it that consumers are saying is, I want my audio equipment here in 3 hours or 3 minutes, or if you can start doing some type of you know what I mean? I want it that much sooner. This is just going to advocate having that. So I think that when we look at AI and the use of AI at the end of the day, it's a fantastic and absolutely, the term wabi-sabi, it's a Japanese term that means the beauty in imperfections. It's imperfect right now, which is why all of you look amazing like experts right now, because you can conceptualize and understand some of this. But our responsibilities around the AI space is how do we help others become educated, and how do we help others to reduce the fears that they may have, and then help with some of the cybersecurity, help put some guardrails around what it can do as it grows, like our children do. So fantastic job. I just wanted to insert that.
Thank you.
Thank you.
Yeah, just to kind of echo some of that, I think for our children and stuff, you guys were talking yesterday about what we need to teach them. I think communication is going to be absolutely important in the future, no matter what field you're in. And I mean, to your point about plumbing yesterday, I think vocational jobs, many of them will be hard to automate and will last a long time. Electricians, plumbers, things like that. I do believe that.
I think trades
Yeah.
trade jobs are going to be highly coveted in the future.
He did stand in to be our moderator, so we had to throw you a bone.
You know, I love plumbing. The dexterity of our human hands. I think, as the great Jeffrey Hinton said, that's the future, folks.
Well, but so
Plumbing.
one last point overall in that, I mean, AI is just another tool. It's a tale as old as humanity, really. We have a tool, it augments our capabilities. That's the best frame to look at it in.
Absolutely.
And plumbing.
Real quick point on as it being a tool. Like my wife has ADD, right? And so she's got a hard time getting things started or organizing her thoughts. And so she uses ChatGPT a lot to like make an outline or something for her, and it really gets her going faster on doing that. And it creates that thing where she can stay focused and do multiple things, especially when she's at work and doing those things. So it's just one of those things. It's a tool that can be used for good.
Thank you, experts, for a session filled with ideas and unique approaches. I especially want to thank Mr. Moodley for jumping in. This is exactly what we talk about when we say it takes a village and you guys having each other's back. I just want to let you know that Mr. Seyfried was unable to make it to the conference. He unfortunately abstained a leg injury, so we want to send you well wishes and a speedy recovery from here at TechNet Conferences. And your team had your back, so. So now we're gonna pause for a refreshing coffee break. So grab a cup of your favorite brew accompanied by a selection of delectable refreshments. Enjoy your time, and we'll see you after the break. We'll conclude that in 30 minutes. So if we could come back at 12 p.m., that'd be great. See you guys then. Enjoy your break.